Welcome to part one of my tie collection. Now, I don't know if anyone's ever done this before. I certainly haven't, and I thought I would do something completely different today, just for a bit of fun. Now, as it happens, I've amassed quite a large collection of ties over the years, some 50, 60 years worth of ties, which I tend to pick up wherever I see them in flea markets for about sort of 50 cents each, or sometimes less. They have quite an interesting history. Originally for decoration, as cravats, they did evolve in time to and become used to display, for example, regimental colours or schools or associations and organisations and clubs which one belonged to. Now, the one you're looking at here is the number one. I thought I'd pick a nice, colourful, fancy one to start the show off today. This is part one, by the way. I suspect I'm going to need more than one part to show these to you, as I have quite a large collection. This one I have no idea what it is. Many of them have no particular meaning at all today. Ties are simply worn for decorative purposes, though there are some particular kinds of ties which do have specific meanings. This one, who knows what this is? It's a series of leaves, obviously. Rather a pretty one. The next one is a very nice plain green colour. Now, green isn't my natural colour, I have to say. I think it's rather pretty. I think certain ties go better with certain kinds of shirts. Plain ties clearly with plain shirts. Now, I mentioned to you that sometimes ties represent organisations. This happens to be my old Oxford tie, Oxford University. You can see the Book of Learning in the centre with 3 crowns. In my early days, the most common kind of tie was the striped tie, and these would often represent, particularly after the Second World War, various regiments that people belonged to. Again, this one has no particular association with anything, I don't think. I do have a regiment, an army regiment that I belonged to. I wasn't in the Second World War, I have to hasten to add, I'm not that old. But I never actually bought one. I never felt the need to, as I've never actually attended a regimental reunion in my life. This I call a polka dot design, and they go quite well with plain shirts as well. Mostly I wear white shirts because that's the way I was brought up, and I have quite a few, although I do have multicoloured shirts now. A very common tie that you will see is, of course, the plain black one. I have several of these, which I keep for funerals, particularly as I've got 5 sons, and they don't wear ties very often. So, a rather sad occasion, a funeral tie. Another pleasant design, a polka dot design of some kind. I love red ties. Obviously, they're very lively. As I am partly Scottish and particularly Scots-Irish, I'm rather fond of Scottish tartans. I couldn't tell you which clan this one belongs to. A very bright tie. It's one of my favourite ones. Now, I said that I pick up all kinds of different ties when I go to flea markets. Many of them I very, very rarely wear. Ones like this, they have no specific meaning. They're just there for the patterns and for the colours. I've noticed that at least within the last 20 or 30 years, you find politicians tending to wear plain coloured ties. Not like this one. This one's got a little bit of pattern to it, as you can see. But like this one here, which is a red one. And you would have thought that perhaps this was the tie that socialists would wear, but I've noticed that it seems that the colours cross political boundaries. You will find most politicians in the West wearing plain ties like this. Now this one does have some very sentimental attachments for me. It's actually it would belong to my father, and it's an old school tie. Specifically, it's called an old Cranlean tie. The colour's not come out too well. It's actually orange and not yellow. For those who went to Cranley School, as my father did, as I did, and also as my uncle went. Isn't that beautiful? I just love rich red colours. It's not my favourite colour, red. I just happen to think that it goes very well with ties. Purple, a colour that was reserved for royalty at one time. Now, in my younger day, this is an old one that I've had now for a very long time. In my younger day, striped was the order of the day. Practically everybody wore striped ties. The more fancy ones, this is not by choice. These are ones I've tended to inherit from from various people. I can't remember where I got this one from. It might have been from my late brother-in-law, as he had a rather flamboyant taste in ties. Isn't that spectacular? It reminds me of a molecular lattice of some kind, like sea salt, for example. A very dark blue, again, only suitable for really a white shirt. Now, I went through a craze of blue ties at one time, because blue is my favourite colour. This is rather pretty, I think. I also tend to favour silky ties, ones which have a nice a nice sheen to them, like this particular one here. Black and white. What colours do they remind you of? Well, that's the colour. Those are the colours of ancient Prussia, unless you happen to be a Malaysian, in which case it might be the state flag, I think perhaps of Pahang. Flowery ones are not my style, although I do have one or two of them. I'm not quite sure why I picked these up, but I have them anyway. Much more to my liking are the striped ties, like this one. This looks red, in actual fact. It's a trick of the light. This is actually a pinky purple colour. A more elaborate striped tie. And ties have broadened and shrunk at various times. In the 1960s, they started shrinking to almost string-like size, which I never liked, and I don't like them too broad either. Something in between. Black, white and red, the colours of Imperial Germany, or I suppose that could be Poland or Indonesia or perhaps even Monaco. Another crystal lattice-like tie. This is a rather duller colour, but there are certain shirts which suit ties like this, to be sure. A dark purple. This one looks as though it's in need of a bit of an iron, doesn't it? And now this one is of personal interest, as this was the tie of my college. This was University College, Oxford, which, as you can see, is a blue tie, and the central logo is an Anglican-type cross with 4 martlets, or small sparrow-like birds. This one I rather like. It reminds me a bit of the EU, although, of course, these are not EU stars, which are 5-pointed stars. I think these one might be 7-pointed stars, but a rather attractive tie, but I rather like it. I like polka dot ties, as you've probably seen already. I've got a few like this one here. I don't think this one belongs to a particular regiment, but this is the sort of regimental, army regimental kind of tie that you would expect. These are red lines. It's not very well made. Another lattice. That's quite attractive. Brown is not my colour. My mother used to try to get me to wear brown for some reason, perhaps because I had some brown jackets, tweed jackets, and to be sure they match. Now, the ladies are very keen, of course, are they not, on matching colours, and my mother was very, very, very fussy about that. So when I was a teenager, she would always insist that things matched up, and of course they're right. Another polka dot. This is, I love the sheen on this. It's a silk tie, and I must admit that I'm rather partial to silk ties. Ah, a typical politician's tie. Orange, though, what colour does orange cause to resonate in your soul? It's, of course, the colour of Hinduism, Hare Krishna in particular, but this was also the colour of the British Liberal Party before it merged with the Social Democrats to form the Liberal Democratic Party, and they used to wear orange ties a lot. Another Scottish-like tartan. I don't think this is an authentic tartan, but it's rather attractive. This is an old tie I've had since I was a teenager. One of the ones my mother got me, actually, brown, as you can see. I don't like brown, but there you are. There you have it, to match my jacket. One of my many shades of blue. Plain white tie goes well, of course, not with white, but with darker coloured shirts, and I tend to have more of those these days, not by choice, but simply that's what's fallen into my hands. Don't like this one very much. I'm not quite sure what it's supposed to represent. It looks a bit like magical wands, doesn't it? Now, this one belonged to my late brother-in-law, who was a Baptist. As you can see, he's got a cross at the bottom there, so I inherited this when he passed away. But the rest of the tie is quite pleasant. It's more like the rays of a sun. Not a funeral tie. We'll skip that one. Another lattice-like, almost polka dot type of tie. That's an interesting one. It reminds me a bit of Portugal. I don't know why. One of many dark polka dots. I don't like them so much. Now, this is interesting. The next one I'm going to show you comes from Bulgaria. It was given me by a Bulgarian friend who was an artist. And I don't know if she created this. I don't think so, but this is definitely to her liking. And I wear this from time to time. Ah, a beautiful sheen. I do like the sheen, and it's I like the weave on this one particularly. Yes, another black, white, and blue. The Imperial German colours. This is quite a pleasant design. Not entirely black and white. It's got a few red specks in it here and there, but it is a beautifully intricate design. I must say, I like this tie, although it's a little bit broad. A pale brown tie. And another one of my brother-in-law's tie, and he liked, looks like a frog, doesn't it? It is a frog. In fact, it's a collection of frogs. I wear this in honour of him from time to time. Another stripy one, black and white, more of your Prussian type of tie. I suppose you could get mesmerised if you drag this along too fast. Another Scottish tartan. Beautiful tie. I love Scottish tartans. Now this one is special. I've had this one since I was a boy. It is Malaysian batik, which is an art form, as you know. And I used to make batik paintings at one time when I was a boy. Again, I wear that for sentimental reasons. Not my favourite colour combination by any means, a sort of bluey and green tie with white separating stripes. This one would have meant something to whoever it previously belonged to. I actually found it here in Sweden, believe it or not, and it's either Leeds or Lincoln University, I can't remember which. You can see the Lion of England at the top and an Anglican cross at the bottom. A rather attractive tie. Another stripy tie with a lovely silky sheen to it as well. Yes, another white tie for wearing with coloured shirts. And another stripy tie, Imperial German colours again. As you can see, most of these ties have no association with organisations of any kind. That could very well have been an army tie, a regimental tie. There are so many different ones in the British Army, and many of the regiments have now sadly disappeared. Another funeral tie. All too many, I'm afraid. And this one, it almost looks like, well, either Belgian colours is black, very dark blue, black, gold and red. Could either be Belgium or the Federal Republic of Germany, particularly in that order. Yes, it looks. It's actually a blue. It's not a black as I thought. So no, this is not. These are not the German colours by any means. And the gold is coming out as black and white there, unfortunately. Again, it's a trick of the light. A rather ugly one. I don't know what this one is. Don't even know why I've kept it. Not very nice. Another nice silky blue. And another, this time in red. I think you're probably discerning now some of the patterns that I like. And another one of my late brother-in-law's. This one is a fishy one. Very colourful. Very colourful. A plain blue with some pleasant floral artwork on it. This one I wear a lot, particularly in the summer. It's a polka dot, black and white polka dot. Goes well with my pinstripe suit. I'm not quite sure what this is. It's quite elegant. Brown again, not my favourite colour. Although I do seem to have quite a lot of brown ties. I don't know why. Although this has a golden tint to it. Now this I like. I love the richness of this blue. It looks like it's a cobalt type of blue, and I love cobalt blue. That is my favourite blue. And the yellow again should be orange. It's coming out wrong. Look a bit like gun cartridge shells, don't they? But they're not. That's quite a pleasant one. Another pleasant red one. And then the latest of the collection, which I picked up yesterday when I was in town. I don't know why I picked this one up, but I did. It's a black and white one. It's quite pleasant. It's got a nice sheen to it, a silk tie. And then the last one, which I picked up yesterday, I've never had one like this before. I think it's rather beautiful. It reminds me of, I don't know, a French curtain, I suppose, or teardrops perhaps, or pear drops. Maybe even, who knows, maybe even a fruit laden with seeds. So that is my tie collection. I didn't think I'd get it all done in one video, but I have. I doubt I'll make anything like this again, but I hope you enjoyed that, and I should be interested to know what your favourite ties are. I don't wear ties so much today, usually only once a week. One has no need for them anymore. They've gone out of vogue. Bye-bye.